Welcome, I'm Pastor Daniel. This is our series Advent, Mary and Advent Story. I'm excited for this one as we journey into video 3. We're going to dip into the world of theology a little bit. We're going to explore theologically Mary's role in the Christ event in a way that maybe we haven't always encountered before. You see, Paul in the book of Romans writes about when Jesus comes, he really is kind of the new image of Adam. In the sense that Adam as a human was the first human to sin, and so it brought the curse of sin to all people. But then Jesus, as this new image of humanity, brings a blessing to all people. And in some way undoes that which Adam did. You see, in the very beginning, Adam was in perfect relationship with God from the beginning. And then Jesus comes and one more time is a human in perfect relationship with God. And in this way, Jesus becomes like what Paul might say, the firstborn of all creation. Kind of a crazy word, but the idea that in this person of Jesus, all people can be redeemed. And in some sense, again, undoing what Adam did at the very beginning of time. Now, there's a theologian, Irenaeus, from area in France. He was the bishop of Lyons, about the 2nd century. Now, Irenaeus did some work that has not seen a lot of scholarly attention, but if we dig into it a little bit, he uncovers something that might mean everything to us as we think about the person of Mary. You see, Irenaeus talks about, hangs on to Paul's theology and how Jesus is, again, the image of Adam. But Irenaeus digs into the role of Mary as her deep connection to Jesus, her deep connection to the Christ as she carried this child, and then that Mary might be the new image of Eve, restoring the curse, so to speak, that Eve carried. In the first part of that series, we talked about Mary as a virgin who couldn't have a baby. And then we talked about the original matriarchs and how they were all barren. And in some way, they carried what we would call the curse of Eve. This idea of not being able to have children, or the idea of in motherhood, there's something about it that just lingers from the beginning of time. You know, we go into the New Testament and we see this idea of a woman who just touches the hem of Jesus' garment, and her body, her female body, is healed and restored. So Irenaeus wonders, how much greater is a woman who has the Christ living in her for 9 months? What type of connection does she have to the divine? Now, we have to be careful. This doesn't somehow pull Mary into the divine Trinity in some way. Instead, it's as if the triune God has been so deeply connected to her that Mary has then offered something to the world, reclaiming the image, the curse of the beginning of time that was put on Eve's shoulders. Again, this is in a patriarchal society where men reign. Women are so far at the bottom, they even fell below some of the livestock in terms of value. And in this unique moment, this person, in connection with Jesus, redeems the entire role of women in the culture. Their identity has been connected to Jesus. You know, when my wife was pregnant with our little boy Cooper, she would text me on my way home from work and say, "Don't you dare make a sound when you walk through the front door." Because he's resting, he's sleeping inside of me. And if I was too loud when I came in, if I made too much noise, and this little baby growing inside of her heard my voice, he would just wake up. He would be wild, and then she couldn't sleep. We saw this even when he was being born, and there were some traumatic issues going on. His blood pressure was rising, his heart rate was rising. And I was talking to a doctor, and the doctors noticed his heart rate and blood pressure dropped. Pretty soon the nurses said, "You have to talk to this baby." So I'm talking to Cooper inside my wife as she is trying to give birth to this child, and his blood pressure, his heart rate, his fetal distress would drop. So it's amazing how we see a parent can be connected to a child, and yet at the same token, in some way that almost pales in comparison to the connection Cooper has with his mom. my wife, in their special bond of mother and child. So we look to Mary again and see that there is something so deeply profound in the way that she has been physically connected to the Christ that she carried, the Christ that she birthed. And in turn, that then leaks out in a way that blesses and restores, almost redeems women in a very special and powerful way, especially in that culture, in a way that might even speak to us today. So maybe as we reflect on Mary's role, maybe as we think about what she has to offer, there's a way in which we see the redemption of women in our churches, in our culture, maybe even journeying along the path that we bring women into the roles of preaching and teaching, that they belong in the leadership of churches, just as much as Mary birthed the Christ, offered this Christ to the world, and some way physically proclaimed the role of the Messiah. So too today, they can stand in that position. And in another vein, women were so put down, so carried that kind of ancient curse, that Jesus and his connection to Mary somewhat was redeeming women and bringing them up in society and culture, giving them freedom in a certain way, giving them hope, giving them value. So maybe this Christmas season, as we think about Mary, we look around our world and see maybe ways that we see persons, people in their woundedness, their condition, whatever it is, that are less than in our culture. Some way that we have somewhat maybe pushed someone aside and not brought them into the fold of faith. Maybe it's there that we could reach out. Maybe it's in those places we could include others the way that Jesus very much included his mom. In the way that she birthed him, grew him, nurtured him, and offered him to the world. Amen.